Hello, hello. Real life. And I see us, which is good. And I think I hear us. Jonathan, give me a quick sound check, please.
Sound check, 1, 2.
All right, I hear you. Okay, we're good.
Awesome.
All right, folks. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. Welcome to Code It Live. This is our channel where we talk about a bunch of different things throughout the week, different technologies we dabble into. And in a way, this is kind of my Monday mornings are kind of intentionally a little open so I can have a nice rolling start to my week. So like you folks and Jonathan, you're like the first people I talk to in a week, as I start my work.
It's because we're the coolest, right?
Yeah. All right, so we should be good to go. My name is Sam Basu. I am a dev advocate here at Progress Software. With me I have Jonathan Reed, who works on our Sitefinity team. And today is Monday, which means we're going to dive into CMS. We're going to do real-world stuff where we have a design, when we have something that we want to lighten up on our website and we want to bring in a CMS, we want to combine the design, we want to build custom functionality and reusable modules and content and all the good stuff. So Jonathan is the one, he's the man to speak to, and you're actually looking at Jonathan's desktop. So when you're ready, sir, take it away.
Yeah, again, Jonathan Reed here, still a Sitefinity Solutions Engineer, thank goodness. And Sam, let's maybe make a quick welcome, because you're probably going to see him. Take a look at my friend down here. This is Sparky. He is a new member to the Work at Home office. He's a nice black cat adopted from the local shelter. So don't mind him if he's jumping around. Oh, here we go. We're getting him moving. You heard his name. So we adopted him last Tuesday. Oh, you going to get comfy, Sparky? All right. He's ready to help.
There you go.
Whatever questions you may have for him, you just let us know.
Yeah, lots of
other than that, things are going great, Sam.
Yeah, we have seen pets on the stream before. We love them all. So thanks for bringing in some company. As long as they don't walk right over your keyboard as you're typing, we're good.
You know, I usually use them to help me answer RFPs. Just set them loose on the keyboard. And I'm kidding. Actually, it's a funny story behind that. I did an RFP recently, and who knows what happened, but a question got answered with just, a bunch of jabbly, and somebody wrote back and said, "Did your cat walk a cat?" Well, I didn't have a cat at the time, but now I can really say I did. But anyway, just to kind of recap on where we're at, Sam, besides me getting a cat, and you got a new chair last week, we're doing big things. We're still working on Coriander Lane, which is a fictitious company, but we're really building it on Sitefinity, right?
I would say the imagery that you use for this fictitious restaurant really makes a lot of people drool, including me.
There's a reason I do it right after lunch, right? I mean, we were doing these first thing in the morning. We just couldn't handle it anymore, Sam, so we had to move it till after lunch.
That's right.
Because it's just too much. But yeah, no, it's a fictitious company, but as you expect, really built on Sitefinity. And we are trying to take use of a lot of the out-of-the-box features, things like multi-site management, translations, all sorts of great stuff. Last week, we spent our hour and a half looking at a custom widget. And as we signed off on the call, if you recall, Sam, we didn't quite get it to load. It wasn't but 2 seconds after the call, Sam. Of course, I remembered what I forgot.
Of course.
Right? And of course, it worked immediately after that, and I cried just a little bit, but we're okay. So let me show you what I forgot to do last week. So as a recap, we're in Visual Studio here. We've added a class library, so we're going to do a little separation of our code here, where we again have a class library, and this is going to hold our logic about some of our locations custom widgets. We've named it Coriander Lane.locations. Just trying to keep with a good naming convention here, just to give us a good idea of what's going on, right? Let me show you the one piece that I forgot. So within Sitefinity, or when you're working with an external class library, you need to make sure to let the assembly know that this is going to be a controller container. And this little one-liner in the assembly.info.cs, excuse me, this lets the code know that it should look in this project for custom widgets and register them in the toolbox. This was the one line I forgot, and the reason it wasn't registering earlier. So that being said, all we really did was create a single widget, pretty simple, where we have a controller with a simple field to fill out, and then we can drag and drop it onto the page. We're going to expand that even further today, and we're going to look at some low-level code in C# here. We're going to work with the geolocation. We're even going to create some custom models and some other things like that.
Oh, that's nice. Before we move on, in the chat room, I see Dead Pixel. Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, I know you've helped us on lots of other streams, so yeah, hang in here. We are trying to build something custom here. I do have one quick question here. The locations thing, so just like, again, to bring everybody back up to where we left off last week, so we're talking about a global restaurant chain, and you, as kind of the super user, you are setting up a place where every new location that your restaurant opens up, they can have their own location page with their info, but you get to control like the overall list of all locations. So
yeah, more or less. Actually, we're going to even take it one step further in a little while, and we're going to make specific users have that capability.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that that users can create their own in each one of our, say, regional sites. So we can create, a locations management type of role where they're the only ones who can manage locations in each one. So what we're going to do is basically allow each region of our site to have its own storage of locations.
Nice.
And just to remind you how that worked is last week we set up this North American site. And then we're going to allow them to configure, their own locations here. So they're going to get North American locations. And then if we go back to the Coriander Lane, they actually don't need, I made a mistake here. They actually don't need their own storage at all. They're just going to consume information from all the other sites. So the corporate site is going to be able to display information from all the other corresponding sites, but they don't need to be able to create their own storage of individual locations at all. But they'll have permissions to do everything here.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I mean, so you're kind of giving away a little bit of autonomy to each location to go do their thing. But right. I did have two questions, though. If you go back to Visual Studio for a second, please. What was the need for you to add a whole new project to your solution for this?
Okay. Yeah, that's actually a great question. So the need is more preference, right? Okay. So I place mine in an external library. Hi, Sparky. And I do so because I like to do things like unit testing. I like a separation of concern between my logic. It also allows me to maybe maintain this package independently of the rest of my source code. The last thing it might do for me, let's say I'm a consultant and I've come up with an idea of reusable type code. This would allow me to create something like a NuGet package where I could deploy this to other Sitefinity sites, bring in that functionality, and reuse components across the board. So there are many reasons on why you might want to do a separate class library. It is not essential. It's not, you don't have to, but there are a bunch of good reasons. I could have done the same thing by creating the model view and controller in the root Sitefinity web application if I wanted to.
All right, roger that. Now, one other question before you move on. So, you are corporate for this restaurant, and
that's
right. Excuse me, I open up like a satellite location. What are some of the things that you can open up for me? Like, can I have my own homepage? Can I have my own like carousel and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the beautiful part about that multi-site management is you can share as little or as much as you want. So in our case, we're going to share things like imagery. We have some corporate set of images that we want to share that library or that storage with all of our sites. But locations, again, are going to be managed by each individual site. So North America will only manage North American sites. Maybe we create another site called Australia or Europe or Asia or Antarctica. Well, that'd be an interesting place for a restaurant, wouldn't it? Nonetheless, we can manage each one of those things individually by simply clicking and making some configurations within the Sitefinity backend.
Yeah. And you talked about like hosting last week. Like,
oh yeah, sure.
If I'm a restaurant in Australia, like, would you normally like want to give people storage in case like you are really concerned about the geographic differences and you want to have like CDN type functionality?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Sitefinity has a few options for getting your content closer to your users, right? So let's say the corporate companies out of North America, for lack of better examples here. Yeah, that's pretty far away from Australia. It's pretty far away from Europe. It's pretty far away from all those things. So how do we get that information closer to the user to make sure that they're loading the site in a timely fashion? Well, a couple options. One, we can take our media assets and we can utilize a configuration-based component in Sitefinity to utilize CDN. Since you're bringing it up, Sam, let's take a quick peek at our docs just so we can get an idea of what it'd be like to navigate some of this. So I might look up something pretty simple here. I'm a searcher kind of guy, but feel free to use the docs any way that you like. We do try to break them down in sort of an area of what's topic, right? So deployment, security, other things. I'm just going to quickly look for what do we have for CDN. Cache invalidation, not quite. Oh, this one looks pretty close. Configure CDN for Blob storage providers. All right, that might work. Yeah, that's a pretty good look. So let's see what we have to do. So this got us down into a pretty deep article. So we might need to step back up a couple of steps here, but this is really quickly showing us the options of what we have to do. So we got to do some stuff maybe in Azure or whatever mechanism we're talking out. The documentations, when there's something of importance, we try to put them in blue as a note. This one here is looking at potentially using Cloudflare in this case, but lots of great documentation on how to set up something like a CDN.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, we don't have to get sidetracked, but this is exactly what I was asking. Like, if you had a Sitefinity installation and if you just wanted to give out storage as a content delivery node, so you're serving up your content that much quicker, this is the doc. This is the way to step in and do it.
That's absolutely it. The other thing here is, let me just show you how quick it would be to change where you're storing stuff in Sitefinity. So in our under administration settings, we have storage providers. Most of these are out of the box. So these two are the ones that we get out of the box. We're going to default to database. This is where it goes. It uses Blob storage in the database. That's just our out-of-box configuration. The second one out of the box is file system. Pretty self-explanatory. It's going to store it in your file system. Makes it a little bit harder for things like continuous integration, continuous deployment, but is there nonetheless and is a great option for many purposes.
If I'm asked, like, what's the difference? Yeah. Like, what are, like, your data goes in the database, obviously, but what kind of things are stored in the file storage?
As far as Sitefinity goes?
Yeah.
In reference to just the general project, or as far as media?
Oh, no, actually, I'm phrasing this wrong. So when you say like storage providers, it's not like you can just use one, right?
Correct.
Okay, so when would you
use one or many, but yeah.
Yeah. So when would you use a file system?
I think, honestly, it's hard to say because, each customer is going to have an individual use. There are some customers who have led us, to believe that there are security risks with storing them in database. So a file system might be a more appropriate source, or maybe database, the way your IT department wants things configured. Maybe the database storage isn't the right place that they want things. They prefer it in the web server file system for cost reasons, for simplicity. I'm not really sure. There could be a lot of different reasons. To be fair, I haven't implemented it all that much. I find that most customers either stick with the
Yeah.
database or utilize the CDN. But there's definitely a reason for it. I'm not sure I know every use case, but there are customers who've definitely utilized it.
Yeah, probably a niche use case, but good to have that option nonetheless. Like,
sure,
if anyone
absolutely
really wants, yeah. Okay.
Realistically, I think it's probably there because that used to be the default many, many, many moons ago, and we just kind of leave it as an option there anymore after we had migrated over to the database stuff.
Right.
But let me show you two other options here. So an Amazon S3 storage bucket and an Azure Blob storage.
Nice.
Guess what, Sam? Both are configuration based. No custom code needs to be written, no extensions, nothing else. Simply configure them following the direction. So if I go, let's just touch one of these real quick. So if we go Amazon S3, we go continue. We simply have to do is set up our settings. Now something went funny with my UI there. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Let me try one more time here. Oh, give it a name. All right, here's real quick how you do it with Azure. So your account name, just plug and play all the information that you need, and you're off and running. Following
this, I really, really like, because like you're not doing anything. You're just like a few clicks of a button, and you're just like shoving the entire thing for your site off to Amazon or Azure.
That's right.
Very, very cool.
The great part about this is you may have already uploaded some images into Sitefinity. We have the ability to say change the storage location. So I can go to a library and say switch it to CDN. It'll take all the imagery, move it up to the CDN, and then change the references as such. Now, perfect. That being said, what if you have something custom? What if you want to integrate with a DAM? Like a digital asset management system? No problem at all. We have a full API around all of this, so you can create your own provider, as we call it. Now, Sitefinity functions off this manager-provider model. The manager really outlines the CRUD operations, right? The creation, the deletion, whatever. But the provider is the thing that routes the information where it belongs. So out of the box, you got four providers, really. The database, the file system, Amazon, and Azure, right? Well, let's say you want a custom one. Sam, as you know, last year we purchased another company called Ipswitch, right? Mm-hmm. Well, Ipswitch has a FTP service. As part of that FTP service, they have a C# API to where I can write my own code to upload information to that FTP service for secure, fast, FTP services, right? What else can happen there? A bunch of other stuff, but that's another call. Long story short is I was able to, in a matter of less than a day, create a custom provider in Sitefinity to make the data store in Ipswitch Move It, as they call it, rather than storing it in the Sitefinity database or elsewhere. So we have this really beautiful manager-provider model that works for any of the content types. If you want to take news and you want to etch it into a stone tablet in your basement and you want to write a program to do it, you can absolutely do it. Sitefinity doesn't care. As long as it can read the information, it knows where to get the reference, and it knows where to write it to.
Nice. Very nice.
Woo, man, that was fun.
That was a lot of things you said very quickly. This is good stuff. Now, one quick question: like when you say like go put stuff in Azure or S3, is there anything in the docs that like tell you what's the structure of what we are creating, and like as you go on, like how much usage and how much data you're going to end up storing? I mean,
so that's a good question.
Vague question, but I mean, is there anything?
So no, not exactly. Why? Because the assets as you upload to Sitefinity are completely you, right? Yeah. So if I decide I'm uploading 10 meg images, that's my bad, right? Yeah. Or my good, either way, whichever way you want to look at it. So it's hard for us to say specifically, but there are some things that you may consider turning off. So Sitefinity has a thumbnail generator. By default, it stores the thumbnail in the Blob storage, right? So the same place that it's storing the imagery. If you're using a paid service, something like a CDN, you may consider to generate those thumbnails on the fly rather than storing them in that system, right, for cost purposes. That's probably the only thing I might suggest looking into if you are going to write or utilize one of these CDNs is to, do I want to store the actual asset itself back in the CDN, or do I want it to produce on the fly? Now, what does that cause? Well, it'll cause some CPU usage for generating out that thumbnail. It'd be a little bit more expensive than having it being produced when the image gets uploaded.
Yep. Roger that. Makes sense.
Yep. So some good stuff here. Actually, for giggles, let's just go ahead and we'll throw this in the chat window in case anybody wants to review it on their own. All right. Let's see here. We'll leave that open in case we need to get back to it at all. Okay, so the reason we got into all this, Sam, was because I had created a provider specifically for my locations for that North American site, and I wanted to make sure that they had their own storage of things. So again, what we did last week was we created a new type of content. Oh, it looks like I might have made a mistake too. It looks like I'm allowing for the corporate site to create locations. I don't actually need that. So let me just quickly change one thing, as I don't need to be able to create locations here. So let's turn this off. Okay, good. Nope, we're good here. So we only allow the North America, so they won't be able to do anything else. Nope, we did that the right way. I was just double checking. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's quickly create a location here. If I click on the right things here, sorry about that. Okay, so based on the way that we created these before, we'll create a new location. And since we're headquartered, near Boston, let's go ahead and do that. Now, as we created this before, we put a regular expression in here. So we need something like 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Let's see if we meet the expression, and we do. We got an ATM, we got a drive-through, and we got Wi-Fi.
Okay, hang on. I mean, I asked you last week, but what you wrote up for a regular expression, that was not simple. That was like a long blob of things. And how do you know, when you're typing in your hours, is it instantaneous checking against the regular expression?
Yeah. Yep. So I mean, in this case, it's going to be when you're navigating away from the field.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I navigate away, it's going to let me know. We must not have put any instructional text here, or we need to either that or update some information here. But yeah, it will check it, as soon as you leave away, and it won't let you save if it's improper.
And I mean, is there anything custom going on that we need docs for, or pretty much any regular expressions is what we're looking for?
So I follow the C# regular expressions here. So there are a couple different versions, and now I'm going to forget what the name of the version that C# uses.
That's fine. Yeah, as long as it's just something generic and nothing custom.
Yeah, I usually use something like what's it like? regexlib, something like this, and then I usually use something like this to help me, test out and validate some of my expressions or find some general ones that people may have already tested. I use something similar to this.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so we're gonna do a couple other things here. We're gonna give it a country, so United States, and this one will be in Massachusetts and Boston. Let's go steal an address. So let's go. All right, so we'll just grab our Burlington address. It's pretty close to Boston there. Just put our street in there. We could also set this up to use things like latitude and longitude. We didn't do that in this particular case. We'll use this address to look it up to display it on a map in a little bit. So Let's see here. Okay, what happened here? Content of this type cannot be selected because the module... Okay, well, it looks like we have a slight issue with our image selector. So let's go address that. So let's jump back to our module builder. We must have configured a source that I either moved or changed. So let's quickly jump back here to locations and check on this. Sometimes this will happen. I probably changed a source. So let's see here what we're doing. Multiple images. So the best case here is first to go ahead and just delete the field. We'll finish and publish it, and then we'll re-add the field. I think what I did was I changed the name of the provider, and it no longer knew where to map it. So let's go ahead and re-add it in here. So let's go and grab a image field, and let's call it images. Whoops, not capital I. All right, what kind? Images is fine. Next. Okay, so where do we want to get the images? Let's use the locations library. This is one that's shared across all the sites. Image selector is fine. Location images. We'll give it a name. This field is required. We want to make sure that they have an image. Any limitations here on the type of image or how many can be selected at one time? In this case, we're going to allow them to select multiple images, and no validation is necessarily needed. All right, we'll go ahead and do finish, and we'll let it update the widget template. We'll show you what that means a little bit later. Okay, so let me see if that addressed our issue with the image selector. It should. I think I, again, just changed the name of it when I made some adjustments a few minutes ago. All right, so this is just making some database changes behind the scenes here. So we didn't have to think about anything. Sitefinity handles and manipulates the database and the backend screens as needed. So we'll give that another minute. It's almost done. Any questions, Sam?
No, we're good.
It's pretty good. All right, so that just finished up there. And then now let's go back to our module and make sure we can select our images now. All right, so we'll go back to that locations. Let's go ahead and create it. Let's scroll all the way down to the bottom. What is going on here? All right, we're gonna have to dig a little bit deeper here to see why that one is still showing up, but not.
Like, did it specify like which exact field it was complaining about?
Well, I know it's complaining about the image field, but it's complaining that the provider that I selected is either no longer used or it might not be allowed on this particular one. So let's double check that. Okay, so here, okay, so we got default library, locations, and locations library. Huh, all of them are allowed here. Interesting. Huh. Okay, let's see what's going on with this one. Okay. Let's just make sure that one's removed. Let's try one more time here. Huh. Well, we're going to go through all the tricks and stuff today, honestly. All right, so again, the easiest way to modify this is really just to remove the field to make sure all the references are. There are other ways, but this is definitely the easy and most straightforward way. So, all right, let's double check. All right, so now, okay, so that time it didn't show it. So now let's try it this. So let's change it to locations. Save and finish. Go ahead and update it. That's fine. All right, so this time we'll just change. There we go. Now it should lock all that in. There we go. Now, last try, and then let's see what's going on here. Ah, there we go. Now we got the proper location selector, so we're good to go there. All right, let's try this one more time. So Boston, actually we can just show more specifically. So Burlington, MA, hours, so 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Sunday, ATM. What did I do? Oh, see, there we go. Capitalize that. All right, a few of those. United States. Again, we're just creating one, so we have something to look at here when we go start to write some custom code. Okay, so this one's going to be in Mass, so Massachusetts, and the city is Burlington. I think I still have some. Okay, oops, that was the zip. I still have the zip in there. And let me get our address. Don't have that memorized for whatever reason. All right, good there. And lastly, let's upload an image. I have a few we can use. Let's see. On another screen here. All right. So let's see. I think these ones are pretty good. So let's upload a couple here. Well, all right, those will work for now. They weren't what I expected, but that's okay. Oops, cancel that. And let's use those. We'll put them, let's see, all default libraries fine in this case, and use selected. All right, so just a couple images associated with it. Other than that, that's really all we needed for a setup of a single location. So we got hours, we got a name, we got an address, we got some images. Go ahead and publish that. All right, so we just wanted this in here just to show when we go to write some custom code, what's going to happen. So first, let's go look at the widget that Sitefinity gives us out of the box and what it has to offer. So first, let's head on over to pages and let's create maybe like a locations page real quick. So locations, the rest of the top level settings are fine. We'll just use we haven't created any inner page templates or anything else. So we're just going to use the base template. We can always go back and change it later. So here we have the corporate home template. What else? Let's use this Coriander Lane base one. All right, that's just really right now just going to have our header in it and a place for us to drag and drop some content in here. From this point, let's do one other thing, add a container, and let's use the out-of-the-box widget that Sitefinity gave us. That'll be under locations, and here's our locations. It's going to display the one location that we've already created, and guess what? Sitefinity is going to take care of the listings and the detail for us. So if I simply just click on the details here, it'll display the details right on the page where it lives. So let's go ahead and publish that. We can see what that's going to look like. It'll go ahead and just show right up at the top level based on the way that we built the navigation widget, so we can drive right into it.
Mm-hmm.
And
last week, like we were having conversations, like once again justifying a CMS as compared to building all of this by hand. This right here is an example. Like you're giving so much power to your end users. Just add a new location and it shows up, and you don't have to make a custom page to show you all the locations. You can do it once, and it just propagates everywhere down.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, so now anytime a user needs to create a location, all they simply have to do, go to the locations content type, create a new location, and it shows up wherever it belongs, right? Yeah. In this case, it also even creates the details for me. So here's the details about this specific location. All the fields that we had configured. Of course, we're going to adjust this to meet our designs and styles, which are going to look something more like this. Let me navigate to them. Here we go. It's going to look something more like this, where here's our details about a specific location here. All right. Hey, Sparky. Say hi. All right. Cool. All right. So yeah, this is definitely a huge benefit of utilizing a content management system. I was able to scaffold out a custom content type. I was able to create the content itself and display it right on a page without having to do oodles and oodles of work, right? Realistically, as a person using Sitefinity, what you need to do with this, style this detail, style the listing to meet, your brand specifics. All right. So now we got one of these in here. Let's hop back to Visual Studio and let's write some custom code. Cool.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the first the first piece of custom code that we're going to write. So if we think back to our design, we have this thing called closest location up here at the top. The goal behind this closest locations widget is, well, to find the closest location. Now, one thing I know about Sitefinity is that we ship out of the box with a geolocation database. This is MindMax GeoIP database, and you have access to it in Sitefinity. So we can even go in here in the docs. You're right. Sorry. We can go ahead and go in the docs here, and we can go ahead and just look for some geolocation, just to get an idea how we might utilize it or what's in it. Geolocation cities, how do you modify the list? What else? Let's see about taking a look at the service here.
So
here
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What did you say it ships with, like a database?
Yep, a GeoIP database, absolutely.
And where is this? Like, would you have to host this as part of your thing?
They live right here within the Sitefinity solution under geolocation in the app data folder.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then, there is a C# API to interact with these particular components. So here's a little bit about it, but here is really just, here's the simplest way to maybe get a user's location. I got some additional code here that we can utilize, but this one here might, you'd be able to target based on, say, country or something similar. Okay, so here's a quick intro. So is the service ready? Then do some lookups. Now, I've already written a bunch of code, so you guys don't have to watch me. We're gonna do a lot of copying and pasting today, but I will walk through what the code is doing. But first, actually, sorry, before we talk about the code itself, let's make sure this page is published. Let's actually drive back to the page templates, because this widget is actually going to go on the page template itself. So let's go over here to design page templates, and let's open up our base template. So this Coriander Lane base here, and this first widget that we're going to utilize is our closest location widget. So now we have a new section here based on what we built last week. And the way these get registered is by this data attribution here. It registered in a section called Coriander Lane, and then gave it a title, closest location. Okay, so here you can see this exact widget. This widget, I then want to drag and drop up here into finding the closest location. Now, we haven't really done a bunch of custom work on it. The only thing that we have about this custom widget is one property that we can configure, and it's called message. How do I know that? I know that because of the actual controller class. So the only thing in MVC that's a little bit different than a standard MVC implementation is public properties on a controller. Not a typical thing that you do in MVC development. But in Sitefinity, this then becomes the properties or the fields that the user can actually configure about each one of the implementations of this widget. So if I drag 5 of these on a page, I'd be able to configure each widget with a different message in this particular case. So now that I've dragged and dropped it onto the page, Sitefinity even gives me a simple designer to work with too. So I can simply go edit here, and I can simply type in the message. So this is a pretty simple one. And let's do the proverbial hello world here. And let's see what we get. Now, it's probably going to be a dark color and hard to read, but you can see it displays the message right in the UI. How does it do that? Well, it does that via the model. So here it takes this .message, which is that field there, and it populates the model. So just like any other MVC development, you'll have a model. In our case, we have a model with a string called message. Should be no surprises here for typical, C# development, right? Last thing being, we have a view. So we got to get this data from the model to the view. We're going to follow typical MVC patterns. We're going to create a folder called closest location to map. So we follow that folder naming convention base. We have an index default for the default view in MVC. And here you can see at model.message, and we're going to display the message. Here is we're declaring our MVC model, letting .NET know that this is the model to expect in the actual view itself.
Yeah.
All right. So that's how all the inner workings work together within Sitefinity. So now what we're going to do is we're going to manipulate some of the code here. And we're going to add one other thing, which will be a custom designer, so we can have a custom look and feel to what the users are going to create. So that said, again, I have some custom code here that I'm going to start to copy and paste into here. So what are we going to need? We're going to need some public fields for the users to set. And what are we going to need them to set? We're going to need them to set some pages. These pages are going to let the user dragging and dropping the widget onto the page. This is going to allow them the ability to configure which page it's going to link to. We're going to use some Sitefinity components from the Feather module to utilize it. So let's get our using statement in there, make sure we're good.
Okay, so what is the Feather module?
Oh, that's a great question, Sam. So the Feather module is Sitefinity's name for MVC development. So if you recall to last week, which some of you may not if you were here or not, we had to add a few NuGet packages to this particular project. And let me make sure. Okay, good. In the packages folder, we actually added what we call Feather. And Feather is our MVC framework for Sitefinity. It includes things like that data attribution to getting it registered, as well as components for you to build things like page selectors or color selectors or taxonomy selectors and these types of things for, say, the back-end designers of a widget itself.
Yeah, good to know.
Okay, so we've added these public fields. So if I simply just build the solution right now and I run it, these fields will actually be exposed via this designer here, but they just be exposed as string fields, right? I mean, and that's okay, but I would never expect my users to go and search out and find a GUID for a page, right? That's not reasonable. So we'll show you here in a few moments how we work with the front end of this to design out our own specific designer. But let's keep working on the widget and get some more code in here. Actually, let's also surround this up. Excuse me, kitty. We're going to surround this with just a region just to let people know. So we'll call these public properties. Try it again. One more key over. There we go. Oh my goodness. See, this is why I copy and paste stuff. All right. Also doesn't help the cats on my desk. There we go. All right. So that way we can keep our code nice and clean. Personal preference again. So we got public properties. Pretty easy. One other thing I like to make sure it's worked in is this piece. If you use the Sitefinity scaffolding, it'll automatically handle the unknown actions. What does that mean? If it doesn't know what to do with an action, it's going to automatically redirect to an index view. You could also redirect to an error view or something different, or supply information into the model. In this case, we're simply just going to pass it right back to the index so you get the default view. Okay, so a couple other things here. So I got a couple private helper methods. So let's add another region in here. Let's call it, private methods. All right.
While you're doing this, like the whole region thing amongst like C# devs is contested thing. It's like either you love it or you hate it.
Yeah.
And I've met both types of developers.
Sure. Yeah. Again, a real personal preference. Completely up to you guys on how or what you want to utilize here. So, yeah.
I don't mind it. I mean, it keeps your stuff together, but I guess with anything, you can overuse it and then it gets confusing. Like, you should not be having like 5,000 line code, lines of code in a single app and a single file, and then just like hiding it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I use them sparingly. I like to use them to group, similar components of my code, whether it's, about a specific piece, or in this case, on a simple widget like this, I'll do things like private methods,
Yeah.
public properties, public methods, those types of things. Yeah, again, as Sam mentioned, or I'll keep saying, it's really a personal preference on your coding style. Okay, I didn't mean to collapse that. Let me open that back up here. So it looks like we had a couple errors, which I expect. This content location helper, this is another helper class that we'll bring in just a moment. And I think now let's modify the model a little bit to make sure we got all the fields we want in there. So let me grab some more code here. Models are pretty straightforward. No specific excitements in here. There's nothing I do specific in models that are above and beyond anything out of the norm here. The only thing I have in this one is a custom type here called restaurant location, and we'll place this into another model folder at the root of this. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's add a new folder here, and let's call these models. These are going to be models for this particular class, and then within there we're going to create one called restaurant location. Sorry, I'm trying to copy and paste around the cat here. This is fun. Let's see, we'll add a new class. We'll scoot the cat. There we go. All right, we'll add that. Perfect. And let me just grab a few properties.
How big is your table? Like, does the cat have space like on either
Not
side
really.
of the keyboard?
No, well,
thing.
he does on either side, but he's taking a liking to right in front of it. So, whatever. That's fine. He's cool. We're just figuring it out, He's only lived here.
Got him like 2 days back? Oh, a week.
A week, yeah. So we got him last Tuesday. So we're just trying to figure out our flow here. So, all right. So I went and copied and pasted some stuff from my other, code I've already written. I'm gonna make it a public class and then just fix some resolves here. Right, just fixing. All right. Okay, here's one that can get a little confusing. So when you're this image, make sure you're using the Telerik.Sitefinity one. I mean, you might need another one, but in my case, I want to make sure I'm using the Sitefinity one.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because I'm getting a Sitefinity image in this particular case. So.
Like, does it like to C#? Does it matter like where it comes from?
Yeah. So if I would have, selected the system dot whatever the other ones were, I wouldn't get the right references, to the type, and I wouldn't have the methods that I was looking for.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the actual image doesn't matter, but like you're using a specific object type which has classes and properties and methods.
Right. Exactly. All right. What's going on here? So I need to find where's this custom? This should be part of our private. Looks like our private methods didn't get all the way copied into here somehow. So let me finish those. That's not it. Copied and pasted. So let's do that. Okay, there we go. Let's see. All right, fix a few other things here. So some more usings. I'll have to remember where that one comes from. All right, I got to remember where those come from here in a minute. Maybe just fix a few more references here. Okay, so I hadn't installed Newtonsoft on the one. So here's a point to be careful, right? So here's an instance where Sitefinity might be using a different version than the latest version of a NuGet package. So if you do use these, quick controls to get help, make sure you use install with package manager, find install latest version, or in this case, I want to make sure I use the local version, which is 10.3. So let's make sure we're using that. We'll get that reference fixed and installed there.
No, but when you say local, I mean, is that what like Sitefinity is already using? But this particular project doesn't have it yet. Okay.
Right. Yeah, that's what Sitefinity's already using, or what's already referenced in another project.
So here's maybe a funny piece of news that you may or may not have heard. This Newtonsoft JSON, this is one of the most popular NuGet packages ever. Because everybody needs JSON serialization. But the guy who wrote it actually works at Microsoft now. He wasn't before when he wrote it, but now he does. And actually, .NET now has JSON handling built in, so it can serialize and deserialize. Like modern .NET now recommends you just use what's built in, but it's still not like feature parity, I think.
Rich.
The JSON .NET still has things that are not quite part of .NET yet.
Sure. Yeah, and there was a time too for a while where the Newtonsoft, when it first was, or not but the one in .NET, Newtonsoft was extremely fast compared to the others. So. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but it definitely was faster for parsing and serializing and deserializing at some point in time. I'm not sure if it still is, but...
I think the performance is at par, but I mean the features are not. And just as you speak, Mr. Coolboy is saying it's made the mistake of installing a different version than what's installed on Sitefinity. So yes.
Yeah, it's no fun. Yeah, no fun at all. Huh?
What happens if you do the wrong thing? Like you... So you might just encounter like runtime issues.
Yeah, so most likely won't build. To be fair, it'll tell you there's a mismatch. If you do get it to build, you probably run into some runtime stuff and or feature parity missing or this method's missing or not there or whatever. Yeah, it becomes frustrating. DLL hell, if you will, which we've all been through in some way, shape, or form if you've written anything in .NET ever. Yeah. So, yep, definitely get it. All right. Was there any other questions in there, Sam?
Sorry, no, but I mean, you're doing a bunch of things, so I'll let everything settle in, and then I do have questions about what you're doing here.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to make sure I get all the proper references in here, so I'm just kind of looking back through my code. So let me just make sure I know. Okay, so locations helpers. Okay, so where is this one?
Now this page is for like the corporate site to show you the list of all locations, right?
That's correct. Okay. Yeah. Well, so this widget itself will follow or will find the user's location itself, and then try to find the closest restaurant.
Oh, right. Yeah, this is geolocation as well.
To the location.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I am very curious how you utilize the geolocation thing that's built in.
Yeah, we're going to show you here in just a second. I got to grab one more file here. So let's see. So I have a little helper class here we'll utilize. This one here has some implementations of like distance unit, just an enum. And here's really where I do a lot of the lookups for locations. We'll review it here in just a little bit, but I want to make sure we get some of these references finished so we can do it. Let me change that namespace though. I want to use a different namespace. All right, that matches a little bit better. Okay, looks like we'll need to bring in that package at some point, but let's just comment it out for now. All right, so where are we at on this file? How many more errors we got left? Oh, that one's pretty easy. So this is just logging and writing. Sitefinity is a built-in logging mechanism. So you can write directly to the Sitefinity logs. So log.write will write the exception, and we're going to write it to the error log itself. This one here, this is missing, using .sitefinity.related data. Perfect. All right, make sure we're using that. This is just from experience. I know we're definitely going to need Telerik.Sitefinity. This one includes some of the helper methods and extension methods for like getting related items. That should resolve some of these down here. This type resolution service. Oh, using that. Content. Okay, now this is a custom class that I had written somewhere else, so we'll grab that here in a few minutes. All right, what's going on here? Okay, system.runtime. Okay, so fix it for me. Thank you. Ah, there we go. Okay, so the only other thing here is this content location helper. This is another class that we use in order to help find the location of content. So let me grab that.
While you're doing that, like I had a question about the logging thing, and it looks like Mr. Coolboy in the chat room also has a similar question. So, like by default, you've shown me the log files many times. Is there a default location where Sitefinity puts it?
Yep. So they live in the app data/Sitefinity/logs folder.
And they will be it'll be writing out the logs on whichever server is hosting that application.
That's correct.
Okay. And if you are hosting this like in Sitefinity in the cloud, or versus using like something like what Mr. Kuba is asking, like in Application Insights in Azure, where would that be? Or can you change where it writes out the log files?
So you could write your own provider to where those log files get written out. Absolutely. With Sitefinity Cloud, so if you purchase the Sitefinity Cloud subscription, those log files are automatically placed into Application Insight. If you're hosting Sitefinity on your own or using our on-premise model, you can write the logs wherever you would like. By default, it does log them in the file system. So yeah, you can build an integration to another platform. What's that big one that everybody likes to use? That's for parsing logs. Oh, is it just called Log Parser? There's like some the tool that anyway. Nonetheless, things like Elasticsearch or other things that you'd like to implement it to. Realistically, you just use what we call the manager provider model. You write a custom provider where basically you route where the log gets stored.
All right, good to know.
All right, we're gonna add one more class into here that I just copied from another location. Let's see, where did my paste go? Okay, that's weird. Okay, there we go. Now we got the content locations up where we just need to change this. So let's go. Coriander. Okay. Oh, actually, you know what? I forgot this one. What other? It's got one other helper here. Let's see. See if that's in the same place. Okay, we can borrow that one too. Okay, we'll borrow one more helper for pages here. Change some name spacing. Okay. All right, let's make sure all these resolve. What else?
one more question while you're fixing it up. And Mr.
Yeah,
Kuba,
go ahead.
thank you for asking this question. This is very relevant. And I mean, I used to do a lot of like stuff with logging years and years back, and I've forgotten all of it because I don't maintain production websites anymore. So
Right.
Mr. Kuba is asking another question is, I know the error logging utility like Elma is supported, but what if you wanted to use something like Sentry, which I don't know what these things do, so maybe you can also explain first what these are.
So yeah, Elm is just another logging mechanism, something just a library to help log. So definitely works with that. If you wanted to do a custom implementation or something like Sentry, if it has an API, you should be able to integrate with it. And especially if it has a C# API, it makes it even easier, right? But yeah, you can write your own log provider. So let's focus on this this is a pretty important concept of Sitefinity. So let's look at our architecture real quick. So
yeah, I think I found, I think this is the Sentry that we're talking about, right? Application monitoring and error reporting.
Yeah, probably. All right, hold on, my internet's going slow. There we go. Okay. Let me go one step back here and okay. Oops, not that one. Not that one either. Here we go. Okay, so let's take a brief review of this provider model. So this provider model, if you take a look at something like this, you have your user interface, you got the manager, it does the CRUD operations, and then the provider. This is where it decides where things are stored. So the same operation would happen here for the logs, where you would create your own custom provider, routing the data to wherever you want it to. So all you need to implement is really the CRUD operations of, okay, get the log, update the log. In this case, it's really more about writing instead of getting. But you'd create your own provider. So log provider, I think should get me pretty close. How about error log? Let's be a little more specific. And let's add spaces. All right, let's see if we can find anything close to it. All right, we're not finding anything real quick here, but the point is, yeah, you should be able to create your own provider by simply, implementing the error log provider and then creating where you'd like it to get stored.
Is there any documentation on like how you do that? Like, just
I'm just not finding it real quick.
No, that's fine. Yeah. No, I mean this kind of reminds me like I do a lot of mobile dev, and for like mobile applications, it's a whole other story. Like you're actually trying to capture analytics in runtime, and obviously error logs. So I mean there are lots of solutions. The one that I like using is Visual Studio App Center. It's by Microsoft, and essentially it's an API, but they give you a very nice DLL that you can drop, and then it's just one line of code and it lights up all of the analytics and all of the errors that you want to see.
Right.
But in terms of providers, they have a similar model. Like you can write it anywhere you want. By default, they will write it to their resources or like their cloud, but you can point it to any other provider to go write that stuff over there. Oh,
I'm not finding that exact. Yeah. Here's
Reagan IO used that.
Yeah, so that's another component. Yeah, so I'll drop this link in here. If you guys have questions, feel free to whisper me or reach out. I'm more than happy to walk you through anything specific that you might need. This actually might be a pretty good topic. Sam and I have been batting around some ideas about doing sort of an open mic type of event like this. So to use our Sitefinity Mondays maybe once a month to maybe allow to do some open coding with ideas like this. So keep in tune. We're we're going to come up with some dates probably towards the end of August, where we're going to be able to do, some live Q&A type stuff with myself and Sam, and maybe walk through some of these types of things. So keep your ears and eyes peeled for that as those things come around. So, but yeah, if you have other questions in the interim, don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah, and I think the goal would be to just like do something custom. Like if you have a question, or if you just have a burning desire to get something done and you don't know where to go, maybe Jonathan can provide some hints. Alright, so Mr. Coolboy is saying Sentry does not have a .NET library you can install and submit logs to. I tried that and tried to implement that via the application error in the global file, but for some reason not all the errors are getting logged. Okay. Yeah. I don't know, without having played with it at all, I have no idea about how Sentry does things. But yeah, that's something at an open mic we could address.
Yeah, if you have concerns or you think it's an issue with Sitefinity, by all means, use your support to find out. Yeah, so attaching to the application error. So realistically, Sitefinity captures those before it actually gets to the application level. So it may have already cleared the previous records before it. So you'd actually have to turn off some Sitefinity error logging to actually capture everything. It's also probably the most expensive error catching that you can do, catching it at the global.aspx or ASAX, area. So keep that in mind as well, because once it gets down to that level, I mean, there's some catastrophic things that may have happened in order to get it, and then it's a pretty expensive process to start writing stuff in that location. So just keep some of those things in mind as you look through things. If you need help with implementation or you think there's an issue with Sitefinity, reach out to me for help for implementation. Reach out to the support team if you think there's an issue with Sitefinity. All right, we got a couple things to do here. I think these are some custom types here, but let me just double check to see what are we working in here. So restaurant location. Let's see. Where did I put it? Oh, helps if I'm looking in the right place. There we go. Okay, so let me just double check what those were. All right, so those come from, okay, that comes from another model. Okay. All right, so I need user location. Here we go. Okay, so we'll place this in a model here. Oops, I forgot it won't let me copy and paste between Visual Studios. I don't know, that's such an annoying thing. Just want to copy it out of Visual Studio. Okay, sorry. All right, so now we can adjust this. Oh, no, let's adjust our namespace to match. Definitely need to fix that, I'm sure, at some point. Okay, let's see how we're doing here. All right, we need city location. Okay, so that's what comes from this. So we need to get this particular NuGet package into this. So where do we find that one? That is a great question. So let's go manage packages. Actually, I'm going to copy this real quick so I have it. So let's see if we can go find this one to bring into this project to make sure that we're using the same versions across the board. So let's go manage packages for solution. We'll look at the installed. I'll narrow the scope as soon as this loads up. I'll narrow the scope to Sitefinity, and then we will see if we can find that specific package. All right, let's make it a little shorter here. All right, So it must be involved in another library here. So let's see here.
So this particular NuGet package source, what is your Sitefinity package source? Is it the one that's per project, or do you have it shared for like all things like Sitefinity dev?
Yeah, so I do have it in my global configuration, but when I'm working with a team, I typically create like a NuGet config, so that way the next developer, when they pull it down, is already pre-configured as the source. But yeah, I do have one configured in Visual Studio here. So
those are called nupkegs, by the way. The NuGet package configurators.
What is it?
They're called nupkegs because that's what the file extension reads, like the configuration for like a NuGet package itself. I mean, not the package manager, but just each NuGet package has a nupkeg.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right, I gotta find where this okay. This one lives in Telerik.Sitefinity.Services implementation. All right, so I just had to remember which packages it was in. So services, right there. All right, that's the package it lives in. So let's make sure we add that. Keep careful mind of what you have installed here already. So I might like to go here and see I have don't install the wrong version here. So make sure you stick with the current version that you're using or upgrade everything. So let's use 2732 and install. All right, hopefully that's the last piece that we need, and we can build the project and hopefully get something pretty close to working here. Oh, okay. I didn't change all my name spacing everywhere, apparently. All right, so that's what happens when you copy and paste from other projects, right? Looks like we're using another package which I haven't brought in yet, rest sharp. Or maybe not. Actually, we shouldn't be using that. Let's not just let me just remove that because I don't believe we're using it. And what's going on here? Let's just remove the extra things we don't need. Let's see if we can. What's going on here? Okay, looks like I had one other type that I didn't bring in. Selected provider.
Just by nature of like where you are in the overall screen, you're in the left-hand corner. So if it's down at the bottom, like whatever error you're getting, we're not seeing it right away. But that's fine. I mean, we'll see the bigger errors, or maybe you can just like drag the window out if you see any errors. That way we'll see it. Yeah, there you go.
Sure. Yeah, is that better? Okay. Yep. Let me figure out what this type was. And all right, just a second here. Okay.
Mr. Coolboy is asking, is that a resharper thing, like the sidebar or the scroll bar? No, wait.
This?
No, that's Visual Studio. No, I don't think that's
this is Visual Studio.
That's what being asked.
I don't have any. This is Visual Studio 2019 Professional. I don't have any specific plugins added in here, like for coding, except for maybe some Telerik stuff, which I don't think I have installed on this particular one. But yeah, this is specific. This is just called the outline.
Yeah,
so I think you can get it going like view and document outline right there.
Yep. Yeah, I keep it turned off. It actually bothers me more than it helps.
Sure. I get it. Yeah, I mean, for me, once I start getting into really long CSS files and stuff, that's where I find it most beneficial. I happen to turn it on for all extensions, but I think you can turn it on and off per type, if I remember right. Do what you need there. But yeah, I just turned it on for all of mine. So
maybe speaking of like Visual Studio stuff, one thing that we could do later on, if you have any confidence in me, which I recommend that you don't is, I mean, I'm right now just sitting here twitching my thumb here. We could do Visual Studio Live Share. Like if you are, like once you start working on a file, I mean, I can also look into the same file. Yeah.
Yeah, I've tried that a little bit. I haven't had so much success with it. I tried to do that with a customer not too long ago, but we didn't get very far. It didn't work as well as we wanted it to. So
yeah, I'm sure it has like things you need to have established and like requirements on both sides. I've tried that a little bit as well, but yeah, maybe something to look into for later on.
All right, looks like we are using REST-Sharp here. REST-Sharp is another provider for making REST calls in C#. It's built on top of the web client, but just makes things a little bit easier. So, all right, looks like we're still missing a few other things. I guess I didn't get all my ducks in a row here, so let me get a couple more classes moved over. We use also another provider called Namatim Open Source Street Maps in order to do some lookups and some other components too. So we use an open source map provider for that.
I have not used that.
That's pretty good. It's pretty
All
good.
Right. In the chat room, hang on for a second. I mean, you keep going on. So Sasaman91, what are you guys doing? I see you're trying to resolve dependencies. Okay, so if you're just joining us on the stream, this is our Monday mornings, not morning anymore, afternoon CMS stream where we try to take a website that we want to build from design all the way into implementation. So yes, we are using Sitefinity as a CMS, and the idea here is to have like a global restaurant chain, and we are trying to let each location add its own bits in terms of the details for the location, and then have a place in, this is the file that you're looking at. So we created a separate project, and we're trying to have a view so that the global corporate restaurant chain can list out all the locations and also list out which one's closest to the user.
What he said. All right. Cross your fingers. Nope, there it is. Something was already wrong there. Yeah. Okay, what did we do wrong here? Probably a bad copy and paste somewhere. Yep. All right.
Getting there.
All right. Yeah, we're getting there. All right, let's see what's up with my bad copying and pasting. Yeah, makes sense. One too many of those. That'll cause some trouble. All right, what else do we got? Okay, restaurant location commitment. All right, so let's see where this is. Yep, we'll add that one in. Thank you. Okay, we're pretty close. City location.
Sasaman, thanks for the follow, by the way.
For the what?
For the follow. Sasaman91.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, .NET developer for 7 years. Yeah, good for you. Yeah, we're old. I'm a .NET developer for, 15 years now, I'm sure. Jonathan has his decade-plus experience as well.
All right, looks like we need one more helper in here. Let me see. Yeah, okay. I'm going to grab one more, and I think that's hopefully the last one. All right, and boom. And... No, it's right here, right here. We got it. We already got it. Where was I? There it was. Okay, let's see if we can just get this resolved. Oops. Aha! There we go. Oh, what happened there? Does not contain a definition. Alright, well, let's check into that.
What is the content location helper? Where is it coming from?
Yeah, this is just some additional custom code, consolidating, some reasonable tooling in Sitefinity. So, public static, okay. Is it still in there? Get. Oh, no. Oh, this shouldn't. Wait a minute. I think this should be page over. Okay. I don't know how that got switched, but we'll just switch that. I don't know. I think I accidentally switched those. Okay. Let's try one more time. I'm a keyboard shortcut guy. Just did a Control-Shift-B.
There's a way in which you can actually show your keyboard shortcuts. I can show you sometime. But I mean, it's very different. Yeah, different because like it runs locally. Like I'm showing your Skype video. But if you're local, like on a stream, you can actually see the shortcuts people are using. Especially if you're using like lots of like command line tools. Like you have sometimes no idea what people typed in.
Right. Yeah, for sure. No, that's pretty cool. I didn't know about that. Okay. One last piece here. We're gonna let's talk about our custom designers here. So actually, well, before we do that, let's see what we have so far. So let's head on back over to Sitefinity. We're gonna reload this page here. We're gonna get the loading gears as we might expect, and then what we've changed so far is now we have some more properties that we can actually set on that widget itself. But what we didn't do is we didn't give the users an easy way to set those properties. So I want to visually show you what you get without any custom designers, and then let's show how we can make it even easier for our business team. And what I mean by business team is this is the people that we're passing it on to, our content authors, our marketing users, whatever we'd like to call them as. We're going to make it even easier for them to configure these particular widgets.
Okay,
so,
go and hydrate as you speak, though, because Mr.
Thank you, sir.
is concerned about us, as one should.
Good golly, I appreciate that.
And Sizeman91, let me answer your Blazor question, but just give Jonathan just a minute to finish up what he's doing here.
Sure. Okay. Looks like everything it loaded our widget up here, but it looks like we had some errors. So we can now. I know what the error is. You know what I forgot to do is we have a field on our view that no longer exists that we forgot to remove, and that's model.message. This no longer exists, so that won't work so well. So now we can go model dot, and then we'd have something else. Now, you're probably wondering why my IntelliSense isn't showing. Well, that's because this is a class library project, and there are a couple extra steps that I have to take in order to get Visual Studio to recognize this and get IntelliSense on the front end. I'm not going to do it right now, but next week we'll show how that's done. But I'm just going to remove this for now. Now, since this is a separate class library, and since this one here is an embedded resource, I will have to build in order to get rid of that. But before I do that, though, I want to show you the designer. So let's go edit. Oh, and it's got even a problem with the widget designer. We got all sorts of problems. So let's go ahead and go back and let's figure out what John did wrong here. So some of those things are we need to add a designer. So let's go ahead and look at that. And you don't have to have a designer. This one just is looking for it, so we need to implement it. So we're going to need a few files here. So we'll need a simple, here, these two files. So we'll need another CS/HTML file, and then we'll need this JSON file. This JSON file is going to tell us a couple things. One, it's going to set the priority, meaning it's going to make this view the default view when you go to configure or edit the widget. It's also going to load any other components that we need. So we need a page selector in this case, and there's a whole listing in our documentation of components that you can add. Maybe you wanted an image selector, a video selector, document selector, so on and so forth. There's many components that you can load in. Keep in mind, too, there's a naming convention thing here to match. So we have designerview.simple. You can also see here designerview.simple.ch/HTML. These all must match. We also then need another folder potentially outside of here called scripts. So let's go add a new folder and we'll call it scripts. This is going to hold, well, as it sounds, our scripts. And in there, we're also going to follow a folder naming convention. So we have a closest locations folder. And here is a designer view. This designer view then handles the interaction of the front end and the server, right? So it retrieves the data from the server side, and there's Sitefinity methods that handle all that. And then it also takes the data when you're saving and then passes it back to the server for saving. We've added a couple custom watches in here in order to do some additional checking or functionality when somebody changes the data. Also, we have this property service.get. This is really the only things that you need to modify if you need to modify anything at all. By default, it really does everything that you need, but I had to do some a little bit of checking and some configuration on the data when it comes from the server. So I reached back into Sitefinity, got the widget properties, and then I need to parse them and do some other components in here. We can also add in like saving scopes. So if you needed to do and manipulate the data on the client side before it saves on the server side, you can also implement those as an add-on, right? And this would all be done through this AngularJS file.
Okay, there are lots of things going on here. So maybe like next week, I know like we try going probably an hour and a half, but I probably want to dig into a little bit as to what these things are doing.
Sure.
Like what is the Angular file doing, and how did you enable the designer with just a JSON file, and what is it reading, and all of that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely dive into more depth next week. Let's plan on that for sure.
Can I pop in a couple of questions? I don't know why I wasn't
Absolutely.
highlighting these things today,
It's all
but
good.
Mr. Kubai popped it out in the chat. Is there an issue with like caching things and the closest location being cached for everybody?
Yeah, so there is a potential for that. And we actually do it and we make the request to get the user's location from the client side. So that way we get the most up-to-date information about the user itself. So we actually find the information on the server side. We set it for the particular user who's browsing. We set their geolocation, and then we make a request to a service that we generate in order to make sure that we're getting the most up-to-date location. But yes, absolutely, there could be a potential risk for that. So the typical thing that we suggest is, one, you can actually vary cache by user role. That's okay, but it still doesn't work in this particular sense. So our best suggestion to you to fully utilize the Sitefinity front side caching is to move some of those components and lookups to the client side. So that way you're passing the current customer's ID or whatever the token might be, the most up-to-date all the time to the server to retrieve the information and pass it back.
Yeah. Mr. Coolboy, I don't know if you actually wear a turban or have a mustache or glasses, but that's one heck of a cool logo and icon you have for yourself.
Yeah, that is pretty rad.
Okay. Now, is there anything else you want to show, or would you rather keep this for next week? You're just going to dive into exactly what you did here.
So I think let's try a build here real quick. I'm going to do one other thing before I build, though, is I want to mark these files as an embedded resource because they are in an external class library. This is very important when working with what I'll call flat files or non-compiled files in a class library with Sitefinity. Now, in theory, assuming if we did everything correctly, which we probably didn't. Hi, Cat. That is very helpful. Yep. Get comfy.
I can help with the build.
Yeah, build. Shift. Oh, he's helping. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and give this a build, and let's see how well we did. Long story short, this is the front end for the designer. You'll notice in here we have some specific components that are Sitefinity. This is all AngularJS. And you also might notice, well, not in this case, but you can follow the like ng model pattern for getting information from here to the AngularJS file. Did I actually build this? I don't know. Let's do it again. All right, so let's build. Let's see if we got this to work okay. And I tell you what, we'll go to 233. How about that? And if we don't get it to work by then, we'll reinvestigate next week. So let's go back to the. Yeah, I don't need to save any pages here.
And
let's reload our Sitefinity front end and see how we did. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, while you're doing the Sas191, I still want to answer a Blazor question. So hang out with us for another 4 more minutes.
Sure.
Because that's like a complete segue into Blazor land.
Yeah, I mean, we can start to talk about it. We have about 15 seconds while this compiles. As far as Blazor and Sitefinity goes, we don't have any specific roadmaps around that, but I can tell you what I do have today. So with Sitefinity 13, we've officially released our customer technical preview for .NET Core. What this will introduce to you is a new page builder and a new layout as a service. What the layout as a service will do for you is allow you to get the page node information and the widgets on the page and their configurations all via a service, right? A RESTful service. That way, you can now take any of that data and build your own front-end rendering engine on anything you want. If you want to do it on Blazor, fine. You want to do it on Angular, so be it. You want to do it in React, fine by me. Do it wherever you want. Right now, we have them built out just using, the .NET Core rendering engine, the Razor views, I believe, if I remember correctly. So if you want to be a part of doing this, by all means, get involved in the customer technical preview and let us know about the opinions and components that you want and or need with .NET Core and the future of Sitefinity.
Yeah, I think that's the great tie-in into Blazor with .NET Core and Sitefinity. I think Sasaman, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that was more of a generic question you were asking, what do we feel about Blazor and if that's the future for lots of web-based .NET. And the answer is yes, very, very much yes. It's great to see .NET and C# running front end and back end simultaneously with WebAssembly, but I mean it's still very new. So absolutely, that is a great future. And lots of .NET shops have taken on things like Angular or React or Vue to have a SPA application in front of .NET, but you don't have to do that anymore. If you just want to write C#, you can do Blazor. You don't have to. I mean, Blazor is not for everything. We are heavily investing into it. We are excited, but it's not for everything. I mean, if you're okay writing JavaScript, just go write JavaScript. It's the same as running things in the browser natively. In fact, I can post a quick link here in the chat room. So that's my good friend Ed Charbonneau, and he streams on this channel quite a bit as well. But he's our all-in Blazor guy. He's super excited about Blazor. So yeah, go and check out his streams on what he's doing with Blazor. But it's exciting for sure.
That's right, absolutely. Yeah, and you guys are doing it. What the Telerik UI? I mean, they created one of the first frameworks for Blazor. So progress is definitely on board with Blazor. Me personally, I'm not as advanced, or my knowledge isn't quite as deep as Sam's in the Blazor world, but and it's definitely there. Not exactly sure what it's going to look like in the Sitefinity world, if it's a thing or not, but we're definitely looking at it and listening, to what the world has to offer. Hey, guess what, Sam? One, we went past the time I promised, but two, it actually built and succeeded, and now we have our custom designer here. Yes. So this designer allows me to select two different pages. One, where's the details for the restaurant location going to end up? And then two, where's the location finder? So let's just say the location finder is going to live on a specific page, and it's our locations page. Boom, done. We've now saved the widget to it. and it's working. Now, there's a few other components that we didn't wire up in here, so it's not fully working yet. I didn't bring in any of my JavaScript on the front end or any of the other components, but we at least walked through, putting some code in, putting in a separate class library, compiling it, which was painful. I'm kidding. And then placing it and showing a custom designer here in the system. So these custom designers you can build and implement for any need that you might want within Sitefinity.
Sounds good.
So I think this is a pretty good stopping point. Next week, we plan to continue this conversation about widget designers, in this custom implementation. So next week we'll be implementing the client-side service for this. So we're going to write our own custom REST service in Sitefinity, and then we're also going to get this displayed on the page and pull in another custom widget as well.
Yeah, no, this is good stuff. I'm excited that we are writing custom stuff, and just the whole way in which the location thing, you're handing off some control, but you're retaining the control of having a custom component that does things for your corporate level. That's very good. And Sassaman91, thank you for asking the question. We are excited about Blazor. Give it a shot. You won't know if it's good for you unless you put it through the paces of your applications and your way of doing things. Yeah. So, Jonathan, thank you. This is good. And since we talked a whole bunch about like different types of web applications and logging and all stuff like that, I'm seeing our good friends over at Microsoft Developer are talking about static web apps in Azure. So if you want to hang out with us, I might hand you over to the Microsoft Developer folks.
Awesome. Yep, and catch us next Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, right back here.
All right. Yep. That's it with us. And so thank you very much. And Thanks, everyone. See you next time.